Welcome back, everybody, to the Taking a Breath podcast. I'm excited today to bring one of my good friends, Mason Burroughs, on the podcast. Mason is a plant biology student at NC State University and will be one of the mentors at the Impact Leadership Village this coming year. And he is also a peer mentor for students in the Life Sciences first-year program. In addition, he's in the process of pursuing experience in his field as a volunteer at Juniper Level Botanic Gardens. So I'm super excited to have him on the podcast today. And Mason, I'd love it if you'd share a little bit more about yourself.
All right. So as Parker mentioned, I'm a plant biology student. I really like plants, but I also really like people a lot too. And Parker and I, we met each other through the Impact Leadership Village this past year. I was the first year, he was the second year, but it was just a really great experience, and I'm glad to get to talk to you again.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm so excited. And so because this whole kind of idea of leadership was how we met and what kind of connected us initially, I wanted to start off the conversation. It kind of made sense to kick it off talking about that. And so if you would just share kind of a little bit and, especially what we learned through the village, but what does leadership, look like, and what does leadership mean to you?
All right. Well, I actually learned a lot about leadership and some of my other experiences. I'll just name, I was in Boy Scouts. That's kind of where I learned more of like a servant leadership kind of thing, gearing it more towards the people around you and doing things for them just for the sake of it, but also just to kind of help build them and build their character. I was also band captain in our marching band. That kind of taught me a more transformational leadership model kind of esque thing.
Yeah.
And that's basically like working with, it kind of goes hand in hand with what I learned through Boy Scouts. It goes with like building the people around you, building them up so that they can become leaders, and like making sure that their voices are heard in the process and kind of focusing on them. And then, of course, last year through the Impact Leadership Village, I learned about the relational leadership model. And some of my like biggest takeaways, I guess, were like the being inclusive part and the being empowering for others, mostly because that paired with kind of what I was talking about with my other leadership experiences, but like making sure everybody has their voice heard, and like making sure you're creating an environment where like everybody feels comfortable. Ultimately, that's how you're going to get the best results, because the more views you get expressed, the more you have to base off of to make a better decision.
Absolutely. And I always tell people it's so hard to see from a perspective that's not yours. So people sharing their perspectives with you is going to give you that perspective that you couldn't have because you didn't have that same experience. And I love that idea of, just hearing all sides of the story, no matter what the topic is. That's so important.
Yeah, very, very important. The things that I learned through the Leadership Village last year, and that's something that's changed me for the rest of my life, I know.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I kind of wanted to touch on for you, because you're going to be a mentor in the village, next year, is what types of things do you look for in someone that you are going to look up to as a mentor?
Well, I mean, that's a difficult question. There are so many things you can look for. I think ultimately the best thing that somebody can do is be a good listener. I think no matter what, being a good listener is a good skill to have. It gets people to trust you because they know that you're going to actually value what they have to say. But it also, going in hand with the leadership model, like it helps you build yourself as well. So being able to like create a cooperative effort, almost like a symbiotic relationship, I guess, where y'all are just building off of each other, I think is a really good thing for a mentor to have, because ultimately, the more you get to know someone, or like the more you listen to them, the more, and then from there you can kind of get to see when they're not feeling or when they're having trouble with something and know how to address it then.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that the communication side of it is so important when you're talking about mentoring, is because realistically, whether you are the one mentoring or you're being mentored, in either situation, you have to be really receptive to what people are trying to share with you. So from the mentor side of things, if someone's coming to me and saying, "Hey, I want to ask you for advice," what I'm looking for is this person going to listen to my advice? If I'm spending the time to talk to them, are they actually receptive to hearing what I'm going to say? So that, that's from the being mentored side of things. But also in my side of things, I need to listen and be receptive to what the student or what the person needs for me to hear from them. So I need to listen to you if we're talking about something and see really what is the best advice that I can give you. Because if I'm just going on, my experience or not really listening to your situation, then that leads to where I can just give this generic advice that might apply for anyone, but not necessarily your specific situation. Right.
Yeah. And that's one of the things, I forgot to mention this before, but I also took the class for being an RA, so I'm like trained in the emotionally intelligent leadership, and that's one of the things that they go into a lot. Is the three main points are like consciousness of others and consciousness of context, and so and they really build off of each other. Like you have to be aware of yourself before you can be aware of how others feel. And then once you're aware of how others feel, you can kind of build a context behind the situation. And that really helps you address a way and a solution that's going to help everyone.
Yeah, no, I love that idea. And Jacob Miles, in the last episode, right before this one, he and I talked a little bit more about that RA side of stuff. And he shared that model, which is funny. The Wi-Fi symbol, how
Yeah.
he gave,
Yep.
yeah, he gave that, that illustration of, taking, how he explained it. And I think, same way is like taking care of yourself, making sure that you are, filled up, that you can then pour into others, that second symbol. And then what was that third symbol? Remind me.
Context. So being aware of what's going on and like what people are going through at that time.
Yes. Oh, I love that analogy. And I think especially, with today's tech-driven world, like everyone knows, it's something that everyone's going to
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I love that analogy, and I love how you explained it. And I love that you brought it up as well, because reiterating that, I think it's so important to really be able to, support yourself, support those around you, and understand that context. It's a huge part of especially today's social media driven world, because everyone wants to share their opinions and everyone wants to instantly be able to tell everyone what they're thinking. And a lot of times, like that, if you aren't really, taking care of yourself and you've been put all this pressure on you, then a lot of times that influence and that pressure can really affect your thinking and what you say and communicate.
Yeah. I think that's a very good like representation of how if you don't really follow that process of being conscious of yourself first then others, I feel like social media, while I have it, I don't really use it that much, but like so much of it is based off of how others are going to interpret what you're saying and like how it makes others feel, and you really focus less on how it makes you feel. And so I think that's kind of skipping a step, and it's just going to lead to uh, bad things to happen. like
Yeah.
it's really hard once you get really into it to kind of start focusing more on yourself and like self-care and all the things that are kind of preached through uh, like counseling services on campus and counselors everywhere.
Right. No, absolutely. I think that one of the biggest things that I see is I struggle with it as well, because my personality is very much so like, I want to be involved in everything. I want to give as much as I can. And a lot of people with that type of personality do struggle with taking a step back and really evaluating their own needs. And maybe I need a day where I can just take it to myself and just enjoy a breath, I enjoy just a step back, you know what I mean? And that was kind of the whole idea of starting this podcast, is reevaluating what's important and what things that I need to be looking at, as told by some mentors that I really look up to. And so that's kind of been this whole idea of getting perspective. So what would you say are some influences that have changed your perspective over the years, through college, through high school, through these experiences that you're talking about? What's changed your perspective?
Ooh, it's a tough question.
Yeah, no.
Definitely the people that I've interacted with. I've had a lot of kind of inspirational people that I've seen that they've done such good things, and it's like, well, I want to be like that.
Yeah.
But that's also kind of caused some problems for me, because up really until college, I was always kind of in an internal battle of who I wanted to be. Whether I wanted to be somebody who thinks really hard about everything that they do, and like just really evaluates everything to be able to like kind of pick the best response, I guess. And I've met a lot of people like that, and that's just kind of something that like I felt like makes, I don't know, it has really good result. Like it also leads to less implementation, like more of a I guess extroverted person would be able to do, is just kind of like talk to people and gain that insight, and then put their ideas into action. So
Yeah.
I've kind of like gone through phases of each, but it wasn't really until college that I really realized that I wanted to be both, and I was going to try. Even if I have to fail a couple times, I'm going to try as hard as I can to kind of give both sides of that and be really analytical of what people say, but also talk to people, get more things to analyze, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. No. And I think something that I personally have learned a lot from and seen you and your actions really speak on is this idea of inclusivity. And so with the village, we talked a lot about this model of, including all sorts of different people, no matter what their background is, and really being radically inclusive, going over the top to include people and to bring them into the fold, give them a place where they feel comfortable sharing. And so for you, kind of, I'm really interested in learning about this aspect of you, because I feel like it's something that you did very well, is setting up this precedent that people were welcome into your circle, I'll say, to talk to you, to learn from you, to talk with you, no matter what their background was. Talk a little bit about that. What about inclusivity? How are you so inclusive in your everyday life?
Well, I mean, that's just something that comes with who I am. I love learning new things, and I like looking at people. Like, everybody's unique, so everybody has their own take on things. Everybody has their own experiences. And so one of the things that I like about being inclusive, or like including others, is that I get to kind of see what they're like for new people. And it's really refreshing for me to have like a constant cycle of new experiences shared with me through other people. And like another thing that I like is I like stories a lot. So obviously the more people I know, the more stories I get. Just being able to view people as an opportunity to learn, because everybody knows something that you don't. And it's kind of your job, I guess, to make them feel comfortable and helping you learn from them.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, absolutely. That's such a good perspective on it, because in my mind, and I have no idea when I was like thinking of this question, because this idea of inclusivity is, when we originally talked, I'm like, this is what I want to talk to you about. Like, this is the core of this episode, is this idea of inclusivity. Your like overwhelming kindness and acceptance of people is what I want to talk to you. And just, you really put it so simply, put it like that you just can learn from people, love stories and experiences of people. And I love that. And I am the same way. I love learning from people. I love hearing the experiences of people. But from my side of things, it has looked different for me. And I think that that's something that I really have to learn from you, and from what you even have just shared there, is like, really, if you are genuinely interested in learning from people, no matter what their background, then that should drive some sort of love and acceptance, because you always know that someone has something new to give and new to share with you.
Yeah, that's one of the things that like I kind of developed over high school. High school, I really jumped around a lot with what friends groups I was in, because I really struggled to fit in anywhere. It was kind of a constant struggle to find where I wanted to be, who I wanted to be around. And so some of that brought me to some people who, it was more like talking about others and like not necessarily a positive way.
Yeah.
And that's kind of when I realized that's not at all what I want to do. Like, people, no matter their background, are wonderful. Like, people are such a great, I don't know. It's just,
Yeah.
you can really learn a lot from everybody, and like that should never really be taken for granted. So after that, I kind of realized I don't want to dislike anyone. And so like it's not always easy, but I always try to kind of spread the love, and I hope they'll reciprocate it to me. But even if they don't, that doesn't really matter to me. I'm going to keep trying.
Oh my gosh, man, you guys hear this? Like, this is what I'm talking about. Like, even just like what you're saying there, it's like, that's so powerful, and it's so hard for people to do. I say that for me too. Like, it's so hard. You said that idea of, you want to love people no matter if they reciprocate it or not. And that's such an idea that is not commonplace. Like, nowadays, people really want, like, they'll love people who love them back, support people who support them back, and all that type of stuff. And I think that's something that it's so hard, is to really realize that, like, there is good in all people. There, like, everyone has, everyone has bad character traits. Like, we know, even you and I, we know that there's things in our past maybe that we're not proud of, or like, everyone knows that, you know what I mean? It's not that like we've never talked bad about someone, or we've never done something that we regret, but it's really about seeing that, like, I don't want that one bad thing to define me. I don't want that. And I don't want what I said about someone to define my entire personality or someone's entire perspective of me. And it's really that, but us seeing that about other people. So us seeing that we don't want to be defined by this one thing, why should we be defining other people by this thing? And that's such like a revolutionary idea of like, radically include and love people. And that is going to bring they're going to reciprocate that in a lot of cases. I mean, I see it because I see it carried out by you. You are radically loving and including people, and they are reciprocating it right back to you. And that's awesome.
Yeah. And one of the things I want to talk about that, part of that comes from I'm a very independent person. I don't like going to people if I don't have to for like help and stuff. Like I like learning from everyone, but like I like that in more of a passive setting, and then like I can use that to kind of help me get through stuff. But when you rely on other people to love you, to love like when you rely on other people loving you to love other people, you like severely restrict yourself on
Wow.
how happy you can be. Like I feel like love is the ultimate answer to being happy. And so when you love people that love you back, like you're taking out half of the people. So if one, you can be a lot happier, and even if they don't bring it back, you still get the happiness from the love that you share with them.
Oh my gosh. Yes, dude. Oh, like loving people, it is a hard thing to do. But yeah, if you're constantly just trying to live up to the expectations or live up to the level of happiness that people are bringing to you, you're never going to be satisfied because people are always going to fail. People are always going to nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect. And that's
Exactly.
an idea that everyone knows and understands and accepts. But so if you're waiting on somebody to perfectly make you happy or perfectly love you, you're always going to be let down because everyone is going to make mistakes, no matter if you're best friends, if you're dating, if you're married. The best relationships are able to go through hardship and come out stronger on the other side because of love, because of acceptance, because of compassion and mercy. And so all of these things are so strong to building good relationships. And so talk a little bit more about that, like building friendships. What are things that you're really trying to do? I know obviously like loving and caring for people is so important to you. What are those types of lessons that you've learned in your friendships with people?
Well, I don't know. One of my things that I like to do a lot is listening to what people have to say. And so when I'm like looking for a friendship, I guess I'm just looking for people who are willing to talk about themselves, not necessarily like in a egotistical kind of way, but just kind of like being able to tell me more about them, and then somebody that I can kind of relate to in that manner. Because I don't know, I guess I like to talk too, but that's something that I didn't really develop until coming to college. I've always been like a huge introvert um, in that regard. Like I just kind of like being by myself, but like I always need people there with me. Like even if they're not talking, like as long as I'm in the same room with someone, I feel comfortable.
Yeah. What are things that you notice right off the bat when you meet people? So you're talking about that idea of like, being in the room with people and that type of stuff. Like in that first initial like time that you're meeting someone, what's something that you are looking for notice in people's first impressions?
Well, something that like I don't know, sometimes I try and start the conversation, sometimes I don't, kind of depends.
Yeah.
But when I do start the conversation, I try and start it in a way that's gonna end up leaving somebody smiling, because that's one of the things that I always look at is how somebody smiles, because you can tell so much through that. You can tell how like authentic they're being in the situation. Like
Mhm.
somebody who's showing a fake smile, it can be kind of obvious if that's what you're looking for. And so I kind of use that to tell how about me. And like obviously if they don't like me, I'm not gonna push anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess that's really the first thing that I look for. And just having somebody to talk to. Like I don't know, I'm never really the person that's like the first person to get picked for like any team or any game or whatever. Actually, usually I'm the last. Like not from like an athletic point, but I don't know. I just No, but through that, I kind of like take that as a challenge to like somehow get people to know me better, and then usually by the end, I'm one of the first people picked.
Heck yeah. I was going to say, you got a lot of people listening to this today that are you're going to be the first pick next time. I'll guarantee you that. But that idea, I really like that. That idea of the smile. I think that's so interesting because I was almost thinking about it in terms of like personality, looks, like people look for a lot of different things, and that's why I was curious in what you look for. And that idea of the smile and how you explained it, I really like that this concept that you can tell a lot about a person by how and about a person's authenticity by how they're smiling. Because yeah, like happy people, like people like you who your authenticity and positivity is very contagious, like are going to be those people who are just happy engaging with people. And I think about it in terms of like, we'll have some introverts, and I know you're generally a more introverted person as well, who, like, first when you walk into the room, it might seem like you're kind of more off to the side, a little bit more kind of laid back. You don't like to be the center of attention as much, from what I know. And so, like, those types of people, what would your encouragement be to introverts who they're like, well, like if he walked into the room and saw me and I'm kind of like off by myself, he might think I like don't like him very much, like talk to your kind of your fellow introverts a little bit.
Well, I usually try and look for somebody else who's kind of like that, um,
Yeah.
because I see it as like an experience to relate to someone.
Mhm.
Like part of me being authentic to who I am, like I know I'm extremely awkward in a lot of situations, and I kind of use that to my advantage almost. Just kind of like bring up something that most people wouldn't think. Like most people are scared of their kind of flaws, I guess, but I just kind of choose to embrace it. And I think that's something that, since everybody has flaws, everybody can relate to that. And so if you're looking for other people who may be more shy, often it's because they're not completely comfortable with themselves. Because ultimately, confidence is really, really attractive. And so that's how a lot of people kind of learn to pick each other, I guess, in these kind of like team situations. It's this person seems confident, let's pick him. But
Mm.
this person may be like really shy looking, so they're ultimately going to be one of the later people picked. So if you can kind of look for the other people in your situation, you can really, really relate to them and make both people feel comfortable, you and the other person.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, absolutely. What was something for you that kind of built that confidence up for yourself?
Well, I just kind of learned to uh, embrace the fact that I'm awkward. I usually stutter. It's one of my things that I'm trying to improve upon. But like, if I ever stutter in like a conversation, I'll just laugh it off. Like usually they'll laugh at it too. Just don't worry about uh, don't worry about stuff. Is kind of my mentality. Like something
Yeah.
happens, laugh it off. It shows that you're comfortable with yourself, even if you're not completely comfortable with yourself. But it shows that uh, sign of kind of confidence, and like no matter what, you're an amazing person. So don't worry about what other people think. Uh,
Yeah, I love that. And that is, it's so hard nowadays because people are making judgments so quickly without knowing anything about people. So people can look at a social media post, look at it for 2 seconds. They're like, oh, I don't like this guy. Like, and it could be anything. It could be the shirt, the shirt you're wearing. They're like, oh, they look terrible in that shirt. It could be any number of things. But people are making such extreme judgments so quickly, and I think that is something that's really hard for people that tears down a lot of people's confidence is because they're listening to all of these negative opinions of others, and they're really taking it to heart. And that, it hits me because I know, just like what you're saying, that there is such good in people. There's so much that they have to offer. And so I never want people to feel like because one person who didn't even know me doesn't like me, that, or says that I'm a failure, or says that I shouldn't even keep trying to do any number of different things. All of that stuff is things that they don't even know about you. And so realistically, at the end of the day, you have to be true to yourself and know that there's something that I want to do and I am passionate about it, and I'm going to put it out into the world.
Yeah, yeah. And like what you were saying with social media, it also kind of like increases the amount of people that people like interact with, I guess.
Yeah.
And so it just sets the bar so much higher because they know, like, oh, if I'm not the prettiest, there are tons of other pretty people that this person would rather talk to. So it's like they're not restricted to who's around them necessarily. So they don't like settle, I guess. But like I think that's a terrible, terrible thing because there is so much that people have to add to conversations, and just um, some of these people will be the best friends you ever have. And it's like, well, if I was just looking at them on social media, I would have totally overlooked them. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's really humbling to think about. It's like, what if things had turned out different?
Wow.
What if, yeah.
Yeah. Just thinking about the idea that, like, if someone just made that initial judgment, then this relationship, friendship could have like completely turned out something, some completely different way. And so I think that is a struggle with social media, and part of the reason why I think, obviously in-person interaction, once we get through, we're recording this during the COVID-19 pandemic. And so we haven't had as much of that. Absolutely. But once things get back to where we can interact, that interaction is so important, because that's how we're able to build these strong relationships that we want to have with people, have people to listen to us, to talk to share with, and to do life with at the end of the day. And so that's something that I think a lot of people are lacking and missing right now, that once all of this stuff is over, that people are going to be really anxious to get back to, and some people already are anxious to get back to it, is just sharing life, doing life with people. And it's so important.
Yes. Yeah. I'm 100% fan of face-to-face interaction. I'm
Absolutely.
definitely missing that.
Yeah. Well, hey, so for everyone watching and listening, if you want to, hear more of what Mason has to say and check out, more about him, you are absolutely welcome to check out on the Instagram at Taking a Breath Podcast. I'm going to have some posts, some excerpts and cuts from this episode, and I would love for you guys to check that out. And you'll be able to see him tagged there, and can, absolutely message him, hear more about, his story, because he has so much to share. And obviously, as you guys can hear, he's a great listener, and does a lot of mentoring with the Leadership Village. And so, I mean, he's a really good person that I would absolutely go to for advice. Obviously, that's the whole reason he's on. And so I really do appreciate you coming on and sharing today, Mason.
Thank you for having me, Parker. It's been a
Yeah.
pleasure.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Yeah, it has been my pleasure more than anything. So I'm so glad you came on. And so as always, guys, new episodes every Friday. So make sure to continue tuning in. We'll have some awesome episodes coming up. And if you're watching on the YouTube platform, thanks for checking out the new video platform. And if you're not, maybe take the chance next week to watch on YouTube. Search, Taking a Breath podcast right there on the YouTube platform, and we'll have that. And we'll talk to you again next week.